This week on the Erotic Awakening Podcast, episode 758, ShadowWork in the Kink community with Lee Harrington and Primal Arts Festival. Welcome to Erotic Awakening, an exploration of all things erotic. If you are offended by adult topics or prohibited by law, I recommend you stop listening right now. First, a heartfelt thanks to the amazing patrons of Erotic Awakening, each and every one of you. Your support literally keeps this podcast, the longest running kink podcast, thriving. If you are not already a supporting patron of the show, I invite you to join the current supporters so it can continue. Just visit patreon.com/Erotic Awakening and sign up for as little as $2 a month. Higher tiers get you more discounts though, but every dollar counts. Hi everyone, I'm Dawn, and I'm here this week to continue the conversations on power exchange, polyamory, sacred sexuality, and everything in between. Today's interview is with Lee Harrington, but first I want to talk to you a little bit about where I'm at and what I'm doing. So I am in Maryland at the moment, and you might notice my voice is a little bit different because I'm like outside sitting in my tent. The wind is blowing, so I came into the tent, and I'm not sitting in a bedroom in someone's house that has supportingly given me space to park for the moment, and I try to be gracious and not speak too loud about what it is I speak about on the podcast. Out here, I'm sitting in a corner by myself, and I can just be loud. And I have so many naked people around me and people doing hot things. I saw a naked punching scene earlier on a picnic table. You guys know how I like picnic tables. And she was naked and he was punching her and then he kicked her ass. And I'm like, more, more. And they were done. Okay, I didn't say more, more out loud. You don't do that to someone's scene if you don't know them. But I was back here watching and hot scenes going on. So Primal Arts is a little different in that it has a very large pagan element. There is kink involved, but if you go to the dungeons at night, usually you don't see a lot of play going on. People are drumming out by the fires and wearing animal skins or fake fur or whatever. And, they're out here tenting and just being their primal selves. And it's actually really cool to watch. I was just in Sunny's class, and I've been on her podcast before. I will talk about her more on the next podcast, but I just did her Primal 201, which was all about grappling and takedowns and things like that. And she was getting ready to pair us up, and I'm like, oh, I'm too old for that. I teach my class tomorrow, which is finding your primal hunger. And that's more about finding your energy, bringing out your inner beast more than the skills of grappling and things like that. So it's been amazing. I'm getting ready to set up for vending for an hour or so. And it's a really good space. This land is beautiful. If you ever get a chance to get out here, there are like 7 events that happen out here during the spring, summer, and fall. Hell, this could be a landing space of mine if I think about it, just so I can volunteer at all the events. What fun. Gosh, what else? Oh, I'm going to be doing, remember I said I was going to do Sacred Touch. I've got a couple of people lined up for that. I've had people run into me that know me through the podcast, so they've been listening to the podcast for years. That's really cool, because otherwise, I don't really know people here. This is my first time at this particular event. But so far, I'm having a blast, and I just wanted to let you guys know that. All right, I need to go take my rolly cart, get up to the car, and get my vending stuff put together and get over to the spot. Tonight is supposed to be a low of 46, and thanks to my friends, Boy Chris and Sarah, I am set up with a tent and warm stuff for the night. So last night was okay. Tonight will be okay. We'll see how the rain does tomorrow. In the meantime, here is me and Lee Harrington, who I met right here on this property, 2004 Dark Odyssey, and I still fangirl over him. But anyway, we are going to talk about shadow work in the kink world, and we had a really great conversation. Here we go. Today, I am sitting with Lee Harrington and trying to get into the mode of this topic because we just spent an hour catching up, and that was kind of neat. Luckily, neither of us have a too tight of a schedule today. But hi, Lee.
Hi, it's a delight to get to see you, Don.
It is fantastic. So I brought Lee on today because I have been leaning into shadow work in the kink world and using kink to help with our shadows or shadows to help figure out our kinks or whatever. And Lee has a background of sacred sexuality and energy work and healing and all of these types of things. So when I got to thinking about this, Lee is the first person I thought of. So welcome aboard, Lee.
I'm
Ah,
excited to get to dive into this with you. Though it's interesting, when I wrote my book, Sacred Kink, one of the challenges I ran into was the notion of how we even define some of this language, right? When people say, I want to explore shadow work, or I believe in doing energy work within kink, the word work is there, right, in both of them, but also this other piece shadow. And I'm curious, when you're bringing it up today, how are you defining the words shadow work as a concept?
so for me, shadow work, shadows are the things that we oppress and try
Mm,
not to like let out into our real world. So let's say anger could be a part of that, right? We see anger as something that's not really allowed in public, so we shove it down, which means if we don't realize we've done that, it's now a shadow and it can rule. It can be in charge of some of the things that we do. But
mm.
one of the other things that is a shadow that we don't think of is our light and our brightness. Because maybe as a kid, we let that brightness shine and it drew attention to us, so we shoved it down.
So instead of it being the notion of joy and anger, right, as the idea of light and dark, I'm hearing it's what is culturally or individually permissible and that which is not. The
Right.
thou shalls and the thou shall nots of our individual life experience.
So that we are accepted
Hmm.
in society. So we've shoved stuff down because we didn't feel it was acceptable. So we don't fit in if we let those pieces out. And
which
sometimes
is
that comes out in our kink.
which is interesting because under the current political lens, as somebody who is transgender, as somebody who is queer, it's one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is that if it's what is acceptable and not acceptable, hate against my demographics becomes then somehow the light side and shadow becomes the love of my own experience. And so it's a question
Mm,
to me of who gets to decide these concepts. Is it what
right.
my lived experience is? Or is it this other person's lived experience and their shadow work is learning how to not hate me?
Their shadow work is learning not to hate you. Something they have suppressed, maybe an experience, maybe something they heard, maybe something has gotten in deep that they're not looking at.
Right. And I think Chrissy Gnome's husband is an example of this, of the gentleman who was laughed at for having the balloon tits, that whole, outing that happened. That part of him living in that life journey involved him also behind closed doors, cross dressing, and even, like when pieces started to come out about his own sexual pleasure and his own identity exploration were things that had to be stuffed down.
Mm-hmm.
And when we stuff down, we see the situations happen where you end up with people who are closetedly gay voting against gay rights.
Right.
And then we could look at this then in the world of kink. It's where we end up having people who are running, straight only swingers clubs, where if a guy looks at another guy, it's horribly wrong, when in fact there is a desire there for interpersonal exploration. But if that person desires it and they're not comfortable with it, they shut it down in their space.
Right. So I'm trying to get people to like shine the light on those pieces
Mm.
because it's making them, that might be the wrong wording, but it's making them make decisions based on something that's not authentic, that's not, they feel like they're not going to fit in if they allow that out. I don't know that I
Mm.
worded that right.
What I'm hearing is providing opportunities for being able to do exploration, to
Mm-hmm.
be able to ask the questions of ourselves, the questions of both where have I where have I been?
Mm-hmm.
Who told me not to be or do those things? What were my responses to being told to do or not do certain things? And now that I have that awareness and I am a grown ass adult who gets to make their own decisions, because the decisions you made when you were a kiddo were survival tactics,
Absolutely.
right? My sweet kiddo who had certain responses, those decisions were made for a reason. And looking back on our own inner, like our own kiddo from that time period, we were protecting ourselves. I'm so glad we were.
Yes.
How beautiful is that? And
Oh,
now
yeah.
and now you're a grown ass adult. And so what becomes the system? And I jokingly say that because it's also something I am still exploring and working through on my own. I find all kinds of new things on a regular basis. In which case, what are we doing today? And what tools are we going to use to
Mm-hmm.
both explore the topic and manifest new possibilities?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes just letting some of the stuff that mm, how to even describe this? But like me right now, I shoved down my brightness for a really long time. And now it's exploding. But how many decisions have I made over the years of don't be loud, don't be bright, don't speak your truth, don't do these things because it'll get you in trouble. And now I'm kind of like in the, oh, hey, I've made a lot of decisions based on that. Fuck it.
Right.
Let's see what happens if I don't. Let's see what happens if I don't. Yeah. So think of this, Lee. You do a lot of self-exploration. I have seen you over the decades, and what I see is that you do a lot of self-exploration, a lot of trying to figure out your authentic self, trying to let things come out and playing with that stuff. How much of that has been shadow that you've looked at and said, what do you look like? Let's play with this.
Well, I recently ran into a piece that I'm trying to figure out how to play with.
Okay.
Because I think play is a powerful way to be able to explore. That's what kids do, right?
Mm-hmm.
You dress up as a doctor and patient to figure out power dynamics and to figure out how we feel about health and wellness and death, right? Kids play as a way to be able to see their own world.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I've been sitting with recently is why do I, not say who am I, but also why do I not share certain things around my own inner thoughts? Why do I not put them out into the world? and to play around with that question and to see where I talk and don't talk, say in role playing, to see where I quote, shut down and where I am lifted up in that brightness that you're talking about. And if it's okay with you, I'd actually love to share a full quote that a lot of people use
Sure.
one sentence out of this.
Okay.
And I think it's a worthwhile piece because some people think of this originally as a Nelson Mandela quote, but this is actually a paragraph from Marianne Williamson out of A Return to Love, Reflections on the Principles of A Course in Miracles. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are the child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure about you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
Yes. I
And
love
so,
that.
right. And when we're talking about how I have been exploring this notion of authenticity and reaching times where I'm like, oh, I'm fully manifesting that brightness of the divine. Oh, I am here. I've done the work. And then 2 years pass and it's like, fuck, I didn't do the work.
Right.
But the reality is I did the work that I saw.
hmm
But shadows, literal shadows, have layers of shadow.
Yes.
There are parts that we can note and parts that get deeper and deeper. And that once we're in the shadow, our eyes can adjust and we see a little further.
hmm
When I am in my house at night and the lights are shut off and I'm in the basement and I can't see anything because I've turned off everything, I then sit there and 2 minutes later, my eyes have adjusted enough that I can walk around downstairs and maybe occasionally bump into something if it was dark colored, but that I can actually adjust my eyes. And I feel like shadow work has a similar tone to it.
hmm
That once we are doing the work, sometimes 2 years later, we realize our eyes have acclimated enough to bump into something new, to see something new. Kink is really interesting in that too, because our bodies are miraculous. They can take so much and do so much. Now, mind you, sometimes that means we push them a little too far.
A little.
A little. But oftentimes, if I tried to hit somebody with a whip, full force, or even 1/4 force out the bat at the beginning of an encounter, there's a good chance that we might have to tap out, unless you're a certain personality. Some of us are sometimes not
Some of us are.
personality, and right, yeah, right. Some of us are deep end, like go straight in. But oftentimes I find that if you have that moment of maybe breath and connections, that we both land here in the moment. Or maybe it's that I start out with a slow patter back and forth, that tap of the tongue loosely across the shoulder blades. Maybe then I can build up to the heavier hit. And then when we're in the journey 15 minutes in, we're going on something deeper. We're half an hour in. I'm taking you in places that you did not think your body could go or that your being could go. And that is one of the beautiful things about kink in its parallel to our lived daily journey, because I don't think it's necessarily kink and the real world. I think it's just another part of our world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so being able to parallel that then out to whether we call it shadow work or whether we're calling about how we operate in our day-to-day lives with our eyes wide open, doing that work so that we can acclimate, so we can see a little deeper into the shadow or take a little bit more of a strike, is a parallel skill set, in my opinion.
I totally agree. And as you were describing like that whip scene, I'm thinking shadow at the same time. First of all, I had to say shadow work is kind of like layers of an onion, right? Like everybody says. You peel a
You know,
little
in
bit
my head,
more,
I'm
you
just
reveal
like,
a
it's
bit
not an
more.
onion. Why has it got to be an onion? Why can't it be a parfait? Everybody loves a parfait.
Parfait, right. I like parfait. But I'm thinking as you were talking about the whip scene, I'm like, right. And if someone has resistance to the whip scene,
Mm,
then you get to look at that because
mm.
that could be a piece of the shadow, right? There are some kinks that I have a resistance to. I absolutely know at least one of them is part of my shadow that I'm not willing to work on right now, right? It's pieces that are deep and it makes me respond to things. So I have to, in a negative way. So I have to look at that, right? Whip scene, maybe someone's resisting a little bit. You get to talk to them. What is it that makes you resist a little bit? And they get to look at that deepness. And if they can let it go, then breathe through it, then they can move forward.
Or to learn the clarity of the difference between resistance that needs to be breathed through versus boundary that they get to learn the experience of respecting.
Yes.
I was at an event years ago, Twisted Trist, actually, back when it was still up in, was it in Wisconsin?
There was one in Wisconsin and one outside of Indianapolis.
No, this was Wisconsin.
Okay.
And back when I said that swinger space. And there was a scene happening, and it was happening between two of the presenters and the head of medical, right?
Okay.
And everybody had seen these three people negotiating publicly. And the person who is the center of this story has talked about it in their classes. Therefore, I am passing it on from their story. And the person who was the bottom and the two tops have been talking all over camp about how it was a no limit scene. It was going to be hardcore. We're going to dive into the possibilities of where we can take their body. Grr,
Right.
grr,
Grr.
grr, so much grr. And it was going to be a bondage and waterboarding experience. The bottom got tied up, and it was not far from the food area, which I also have personal feelings about that, because then people who were just trying to eat couldn't escape the scene. But that's its own like respect topic. But a whole circle gathered around them, or crescent gathered around them, and maybe 5 minutes into the scene, the bottom started screaming, red, red, I know we said no safe word. Red, red was the camp safe word.
Right.
Red, red, I mean it, stop. The tops had stopped, but this bottom was still bound to this piece of equipment. They were thrashing and flailing. And like time stood still, and I have no idea if 2 seconds passed or 30 seconds passed, no idea. But I and another person that were in attendance stepped forward and started talking calm. Like we looked at the tops, and the tops were like, we stopped.
Right.
The bottom was still having this experience. And so we start slowly getting towards them, and then we're like, hey, the tops have backed up. Are you ready to get untied? And they were like, just let me out, just let me out. And so we escorted them out of the space. And I talked to that bottom later, and they said, the scene was supposed to be a hardcore scene that took me into the depths of where my brain and body could go. And I realized after the scene was done that never in my life had I actually said no.
Ooh.
Not when they were with an abusive partner,
Mm-hmm.
right? They just dealt with what came to them as an abused partner,
Right.
physically and otherwise abused partner. They just dealt. with scenes that were not what they wanted. They dealt with work that didn't go how they wanted. They dealt with life. And for the first time, they said no. To the outside lens, to somebody in that crescent of people, it might have looked like, oh, you thought you were tough enough to be able to face the shadow and be able to do
Right.
this hardcore scene, etc. But the real work that ended up happening was that bottom breaking down enough to find where the actual line was and actually hold it. And to realize, oh shit, I've never done this. And does that mean if I can do it here, does that mean I can do it at the office? Does that mean I can do it in a relationship? What does that mean? And it was so beautiful hearing that bottom talk about it. I also love the fact, side note, that the bottom and the two tops later that day all ate together
Yeah.
to have people know that this was not an abusive scene, that the
Right.
tops weren't bad people, etc. Like they made the
Right.
conscious choice to publicly show that they were still good humans with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And just as a
You know,
side note, I appreciate that.
it's really funny because one of the reasons I'm going to Tryst this year is because a lot of transformative scenes like that, in my experience, have happened there
Mm,
or have happened at that campground outside of Baltimore.
yeah,
Those are the main two places. I love those outdoor events. So, and what you're describing, that whole scene, holy fuck, did they tap into the shadow
yeah,
without knowing that was the shadow they were going to tap into? They had a
right,
whole different plan.
right. Exactly. And I love that notion that we don't always get to know which shadow we're going to tap into. I think you phrased that really well. Thank you.
You're welcome, because it does happen. And when we do, in the kink world, when we do intense scenes like this, we don't always know what's going to happen. And Doms, the fact that they stood back and like, hey, we stopped, they may not have had the experience. I mean, they were prepped for something completely different.
Right. And those two people did have the experience. There was nothing they could do because they were the
Right,
villains. They were read as the villains. And
right.
people's animalistic brains, it's hard to have the villains be the one who takes care of you in times of crisis.
Yes. And some people will, when I do my aftercare class, I will specifically say some people don't want aftercare from the person that was the villain because it
Exactly.
fucks up their head,
And
right?
flip side, the villain can't always receive aftercare from their victim in
Right,
that story plot line, right?
right,
Sometimes
right.
it's the villain who needs to have somebody say, you are actually a solid and good person. I know you just did those activities with someone that are part of your shadow.
Yes.
Another scene I saw, this was at that land in Maryland, which, as a note, is the land that holds, if people are considering, it's Camp Crucible. It's two of the Dark Odyssey events. It is International Women of Drummer. It is Fornicopia. There's a lot of events that happen.
Beltane,
Oh
Primal
yes,
Arts.
Primal Arts, Turtle Hills Beltane,
Hmm.
and Free Spirit Gathering Pagan Festival that has some adult track. They're actually having me for the first time. I haven't done this class in like 15 years, except for online once. My arcane dominance and submission. So looking at DS as a
Ooh,
spiritual tool, I'm getting to do it a totally vanilla pagan event at that
nice.
land in August. I'm so excited.
I love that land. I'll be there next weekend. So,
Nice. So at that land, there was a racially based scene. And it
that's
was
what
the
I was going to
person,
bring up for Trist.
it
Yeah.
was a person who was Black who wanted to be the person who had things done to them that were pulling upon cultural trauma,
Yes.
right? And their white friends who they approached said, no, we don't want to do it. We don't want to do it. We don't want to be those villains.
Right.
You're our friend. We don't want to do that. Eventually, after much negotiation, they decided to do a thing.
Hmm.
And partway into the thing, one of the tops started going into a fugue state or a trance state, like, and they wandered away, and somebody luckily who was viewing caught them energetically and physically, like was just like, are you okay? And the top went, oh fuck, I'm not okay. because what
Hmm.
came forward was a realization that the words that had just come out of their mouth when doing a scene with a friend were the words that their racist grandfather used to say.
Hmm.
And the back of their brain just went, am I as bad as my racist grandfather?
Hmm.
And over time, it shifted into, yes, I am the grandchild of my racist grandfather. And growing up in the United States means that racism and anti Blackness is interwoven into the culture I am in. And even though I have no interest in saying those things and I do not consciously believe any of those things, I still get to do the work, as it were,
Hmm.
because the the history of racism and racial trauma affects not just Black folks in our country, but
Oh,
white folks too.
yeah.
And that trauma gets to be unlearned and unwoven from the shadow, which means he gets to do the work just as much as anyone else, and perhaps more if that's where he's coming out of. He
It's
didn't consent to or plan any of that shadow
right.
work.
All of us have shadows, and we just need to know that. And in the kink world, we're going to see scenes that tap our stuff. We're going
Yeah,
to participate in scenes that tap into stuff that we didn't know was there because it's a shadow, it's deep, it's
yeah,
buried. And the race play scene that was at Tryst, we were all warned. And it was the same thing. It was a person of color that I've had on the podcast before to talk about that scene. She wanted to work with that stuff, right? She wanted to bring it up. She had her friends agree to it who were resistant, right, for reason, but they wanted to be the ones to do it if she was going to do it. They knew
ooh,
they were safer than
right,
other people that she could pick. Okay. So they were into it. Well, they warned everybody at the camp that there was going to be screaming, there was going to be slurs, there was going to be all of this stuff. Some people left. It's not what they wanted to hear.
yeah,
Some of us held space for each other around campfires, and we're crying because it's
right.
tapping, like you said, it's tapping into our generational stuff and things like that. So, yes, in the kink world, we are going to run into our shadows.
Yeah, and some of it is things that you and I negotiated in our scene together, and other things are shit that like you turn a corner and it's like, what did I just walk into?
Yeah.
And it's funny because the number of times I've had to explain to people that when it's a top beating a bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we're doing domestic violence role playing.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, well, that's not what I'm doing. And I'm like, if you're a random person walking into a play space, especially if you see a male top hitting a female bottom, we're looking at immediately, you walk in the door and suddenly you're seeing domestic violence or something
Mm-hmm.
that looks like it, unless it's highly curated in its aesthetic,
Yeah.
right? Somebody's dressed as a unicorn, somebody else is a fairy princess. That's a separate conversation. But I'm just saying the average dungeon space I go to, I've had people who are first timers exploring these topics, not shadow, just exploring kink at all, who walk in, see that scene, and turn their ass around, understandably. I was at a play party years ago. Oh, time is weird. I realized this August is my 30 years in the scene,
Shit. I'm
right?
only
Like,
I'm only at 27.
right, like when the hell did that happen? But
Exactly.
I was at a space that was literally called No Holes Barred, which is a clever name for a party,
Yes.
right? And the idea for it was taboo and or shadow. I got to be a human piss fountain, right?
Cool.
Suspended in midair, got to be a chandelier of pee, right? Good
Nice.
times. As you do, as you do. And I ended up doing a scene with somebody who, by culture standards, was read as a dude that had the aesthetic, words, and actions that read like what domestic violence could be. But it was two dudes, right? That person's partner, who was a woman, said, "Oh my God, that scene was totally hot and you're a switch. Could we do that scene once you're physically up for it?" And he said, "Yeah, give me an hour. Let's go." Same venue, same words, same actions. Of all of the weird ass stuff that happened that night, theirs was the only one that got shut down, an event that said they would shut down no scenes.
Ooh.
But the people running the event, that was too close to their history.
Yes. Yes.
And venue producers and event producers are allowed to say no. And if you don't like it as an attendee, run your own parties.
Right.
Like, seriously, they are allowed to have limits too. It's not that they're not edgy enough. It's not that they lied. It's that they realized halfway into your scene that they don't want that at their party. And so, whether it's for legal reasons, because sometimes your breath play is being shut down because the lawyers say no.
Right.
Um, the insurance policy says no fire.
Right.
But sometimes it's because producers say no, or the other guests who are in attendance go to the person who's running the organizing of some sort, whether that's a dungeon monitor or whether that's the person who owns the private house it's in, and says, "Hey, we're uncomfortable," and it gets called. You're not a bad person for wanting to explore either these activities or these topics. It doesn't mean that your shadow and the planned experience you had was wrong or bad. It just meant that that venue, that place, that time, these people were not a good fit. It was not in, it wasn't in alignment with the other things happening in that space. So to also know that if you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, I actually really want to look at, say, a piece of your trauma history, and with somebody who's safe, who will actually respect your no, unlike the other person the experience happened with when you were younger." And you know that if you say banana, they'll actually stop. Or if you
Mm-hmm.
drop your affect and instead of saying no, 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 you say no, you know they're going to actually stop. Because sometimes saying a magical spell word, right?
Right.
Like, you're just not going to remember sassafras in the middle of
Right.
the scene. But you might go no, or go completely nonverbal, or let your head drop, that you know that the person you've talked to, who's your teammate, who is collaborating with you on this journey, will stop and check in with you. That's totally different. It might just not be the right fit for tonight, even if it was part of your plan, and it doesn't make your desire to explore these things not good. It just means for tonight. And as a note, I just want to say that a lot of us seem to focus on, because it's easier, the person who was the quote oppressed, the person
Mm-hmm.
who was harmed, the bottom.
Right.
The number of times I have gotten to talk to, especially cisgender heterosexual men, who have had to work through the shadow of the sentence, "Good men don't hit women."
No shit. Absolutely.
Yeah, you've seen
So
it too, right?
I have, yeah, yeah. So it is something that they have to work on. Some of them, they're sadistic desires.
Right.
They have to look at that. That could be a shadow. That could whatever.
Or
It's
even that your partner saying to you, "I want to have you smack me or spank me," them now having to face their own journey, even if they're not sadistic, they just want to
right.
make their spouse happy, right? If you're listening, you just want to make your spouse happy, but now you have to face the words your uncle said to you and go on that quest.
And I bet you there's a lot of people in our community that have to do that,
Right.
right?
Oh, I have
Ooh.
talked to so many over the years. And it's
Mm-hmm.
funny because I used to, when I started teaching kink, I would say things like, "You just need to tell your partner what you want." That's a 201 level skill set. 101 is saying, like, hey, are you available for me to talk about a thing that I don't know how I'm going to feel about it? Or it's asking yourself, how do I feel about it? Or it's finding the magic words and making sure you find the right time to bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
Right when they got home from work, maybe not the moment.
Maybe not. No, maybe not. So we look at, I'm going to sum this up a little bit. And this feels like it could be a conversation that we could have lots and lots of talk about. But summing it up, kink, a lot of us look at kink as play, as fun, as dressing up, as the new toy, as the new scene, the new experience, the things like that. And what you and I have been talking about is that sometimes, and a lot of times, that environment is going to bring up shit, and we get to work on it
Mm-hmm.
as a top or a bottom. And we may not even know it's in there because it's been buried so deep, it can surprise us. And sometimes, which is a whole other conversation, we do this shit on purpose.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, this thing brings up weird feelings. Maybe I should look at that. Here, let's have a scene about it. Bring it up on purpose. So,
I think maybe another summary to offer that just came to me is that I think about when people say play, I don't always think about the notion of childhood play. I think about play as in the theater,
mm,
and that some scenes that are plays are improv, and some are highly scripted Shakespearean scenes that have been done 100 times, and you're just putting your twist on it. But not all plays are happy, right? I was a theater reviewer for a while, and there are plays that you would show up to, and halfway through the play, you realized it wasn't a comedy; it was actually a tragedy.
right.
Or other times where you're like, oh, this play is investigating some dark stuff. And by the end, you realize it's actually incredibly human and there's so much love wrapped up in it.
Mm,
And so I wonder too, when we're thinking about wanting to play with another person in the shadow, is to consider the literal plays out there that explore the shadow and give us gifts of knowledge on the other side.
mm. I like the way you worded that. Awesome. So, Lee, I know you've got some things coming up that you're going to be doing. If someone wanted to know where to find you in person or where you might be presenting or anything like that, how would they look you up?
Yeah, so you can find my information all over the place, but Passion and Soul is my passionandsoul.com, is my Patreon, where I have monthly classes that are available free to every level of patron, and also all kinds of recordings. I realized recently I did over 800 posts that are on there with
Wow.
resources at every single turn. It's wild. But event wise, I'm excited there's going to be an array of different classes that you can find me at. I'm coming up at Camp Crucible, which is at that campground we mentioned. But
Yes.
in June, I'm going to be doing classes on clothing bondage, solo DS, information on doing things with what I am referring to doing magic and spells by the seat of your pants.
Mm.
If you are in Phoenix or want to travel there, the last weekend of June, I'm going to be doing a 3-day intensive on dominance, submission, authority transfer, and the way to make our authenticity shine in all of those fields. So that's going to be in Phoenix, Arizona, and we're limiting it to 18 attendees. We are already selling a lot of tickets, so please come on out and join us for that intensive.
Oh, I wish I was going to be there at that time. Love that group, love that space. So, well, thank you for joining me tonight, Lee. I hope to see you in person soon. We have a lot to talk about.
Absolutely. It was great to get to see you, and thank you everyone for listening at home.
So great conversation with Lee. I've got some upcoming events if you guys are interested. If you would like to share a cup of coffee, like I'm going to be doing with a few people here at Primal Arts, if you want to share coffee and conversation, my next spot is Twisted Tryst in Ohio, June 11 through 14, where I'll be presenting. I'm checking out another camping event in South Dakota in July. They want me to present there next year, so I'm going to go check it out. Seek, a submissive retreat in Wisconsin, October 8th through 11. Satyricon in Madison, November 14th. I'll be presenting and vending. And I just got invited to vend outside of Chicago in November. So that'll be neat. I will make sure I have a lot of hooded blankets. I have a feeling I'm going to sell out at this event as well, as chilly as it is. Anyway, more info to come as the details get ironed out. I might also be in New Mexico in October. So keep up with all the places I'm presenting or vending, my online classes and intensive, book news, discounts, and more via the Erotic Awakening newsletter. And when you sign up for the newsletter, get your EA shout out like Dark in Maryland and Susie Q in Ohio. Head over to eroticawakening.com and subscribe to the newsletter today. Oh my gosh, so many things, but I am going to wrap up so that I can go enjoy the event. I can be found at dawn_awakening or erotic_awakening on Fetlife, Erotic Awakening on Instagram, EA Podcast Dawn on TikTok, or just email me at dawn@eroticawakening.com. And be a part of the Erotic Awakening podcast community. You can become a patron of the show and get early access to the podcast, a free copy of the audiobook Polyamory Toolkit, free ebooks, discounts on monthly Zoom classes, member-only Discord, not safe for work channel, and more. Find all the goodies at patreon.com/Erotic Awakening today. And help others find Erotic Awakening. Give us high ratings wherever you listen to the podcast, and most importantly, tell your friends about the show. Join the conversation with other listeners. Use the links from the Erotic Awakening website for our interactive Discord channel, open to all listeners. Until next time, may your journey be filled with passion, joy, and a bit of naughtiness. Bye, everyone.